the king is dead.
Yeah.
Or, to be more precise about the man we are discussing today, the ghost is dead.
That is a much better way to put it.
We are looking at news that is absolutely seismic. And this isn't just for Mexico. This is for the entire geopolitical balance of North America.
Yeah.
Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, known to the world, or perhaps known to the shadows as El Mencho, has been killed.
This is a massive, massive moment. We are talking about the absolute leader of the CJNG, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel.
Right.
And honestly, to simply call him a drug lord feels like a minimization of what he actually was and what he built.
That's exactly what we need to unpack today.
Yeah.
Because you look at the headlines and they're going to say Kingpin killed, and people are just going to think, okay, another one bites the dust. Next up.
Exactly. Business as usual.
But we have a stack of reports here. Specifically, we're doing a deep dive into a first-hand account from journalist Caterina Sulk. She's currently on the ground in the middle of this fallout.
Right in the thick of it.
And her central thesis is fascinating because it completely reframes how we should look at this man. She argues El Mencho wasn't just a criminal. She calls him the Shadow President of Mexico.
That phrase, Shadow President, that is the key to understanding everything we're going to discuss today.
Yeah.
It implies a parallel state, a governing body that operates underneath the official one, but with equal, or sometimes greater, power.
Which is terrifying.
It is, because
Wow.
when you take out the head of a criminal organization, you get an arrest warrant and maybe a trial. But when you take out the head of a shadow state, you don't just get a vacuum, you get a civil war.
And that is exactly what the source is describing right now. We aren't looking at some peaceful transition or a victory lap for law enforcement. The reports coming out of Jalisco and the surrounding areas are just terrifying.
Pure anarchy.
Pure anarchy. We're talking about a kill mission, not a capture mission, a kill mission that has sparked a level of violence that makes the official government narratives look, well, let's just say disconnected from reality.
It really raises a fundamental question right off the bat for you to think about. When the dust settles on a bespoke civil war like this, who actually runs the country?
Right.
Is it the people in the presidential palace in Mexico City, or is it the organization that just lost its CEO?
So let's dive into this. We have to start with the man himself. Because unlike other figures we've seen in the narco world, El Mencho was different.
Very different.
When we think of cartels, I think most listeners have a specific archetype in mind. We think of El Chapo.
Right. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. He is the pop culture definition of a kingpin.
The gold-plated guns.
The gold guns, the flashy clothes. He loved the fame. He wanted the movie deals, the interviews with Sean Penn.
Oh, yeah, the Sean Penn thing.
He wanted the notoriety. He was essentially a rock star criminal who wanted the world to know his name.
But El Mencho, the source, describes him as a ghost.
Completely opposite energy. And this is crucial to understanding how the CJNG became so unbelievably powerful. Caterina points out that El Mencho was obsessed with flying under the radar.
He lived what she describes as a typical Mexican man's life.
Exactly. If you saw him on the street, you wouldn't think billionaire kingpin with a private army. You'd think he was a farmer or a mid-level laborer.
Which is ironic, because his background actually starts there. He was born in Michoacan, humble agricultural background. But here's the part of his bio that always blows my mind. He lived in the U.S. illegally in the 80s.
That's a pivotal part of his origin story.
He wasn't some untouchable myth back then. He was arrested in California for minor drug charges. Heroin, cocaine, but small amounts.
Street-level stuff.
Yeah, street level.
Yeah.
He gets deported back to Mexico. And then, this is the crazy twist, he becomes a police officer.
That trajectory from illegal immigrant deportee to Mexican police officer to the most dangerous man in North America, it really highlights the fluidity between the law and the cartel world in Mexico.
Boy, let's pause on the police officer part, because that's not just a funny piece of trivia. That has to have shaped how he ran the cartel, right?
Right.
Oh, absolutely. Think about the tactical advantage. He wasn't just a thug who learned to shoot on the street. He went through the academy.
He knew the system.
He understood police radio codes. He understood shift changes. He intimately understood the psychology of a cop who is underpaid and overworked.
Wow.
So when he eventually built the CJNG, he didn't build it like a street gang. He built it with the discipline and structure of a paramilitary police force. He knew exactly how the state operated because he used to wear the badge.
And the source emphasizes that once he crossed that line into the cartel world, he never looked back. He never gave an interview. He faked his death multiple times. He just understood that anonymity was his greatest shield.
Yeah, while Chapo was trying to get a biopic made, Mencho was ghosting the entire world.
But he wasn't anonymous to everyone. This brings us back to that shadow president aspect. To the poor communities in Mexico, specifically in Jalisco and Michoacan, he wasn't a villain. The source argues he was a provider.
The Robin Hood myth. It's the oldest tool in the insurgency playbook, but Mencho really perfected it. The source details how, during Christmas, the CJNG didn't just hand out turkeys for a photo op.
What would they do?
They would pay electric bills for entire communities. They'd buy groceries, pay for gas, hand out gift cards.
I mean, that creates a loyalty base, sure. But is it just about buying affection?
It's deeper than that. It's about replacing the actual functions of the state.
Okay, explain that.
If you are a farmer in a rural village and someone steals your truck, you don't go to the police.
Why not?
Because the police will ask for a bribe, take 6 months to file paperwork, and ultimately do nothing. So instead, you go to the local CJNG commander.
And they handle it.
They handle it. He finds the truck, returns it to you, and punishes the thief within 24 hours.
That's efficient. Brutal, obviously, but efficient.
Exactly. And that creates a dependency that is stronger than patriotism. If the federal government isn't fixing the roads or keeping the lights on, but the guy with the assault rifle is paying your bills and settling your disputes, well, who is your president? Right.
Who do you protect when the Marines come knocking? You protect the shadow president.
It's a state within a state. And that intense loyalty makes what happened to him this sudden, violent, and even more shocking. Let's talk about the operation itself, because the source is very clear on this. This was a kill mission.
This is a really crucial distinction that we need to hammer home. Usually, Western law enforcement aims for capture. You want the intel, you want the trial, you want the spectacle of justice.
You want to see him in a jumpsuit in a New York courtroom.
Exactly. But here, the source argues that a decision was made at the highest levels to ensure he did not leave that compound alive.
Why? Why not put him on trial? Why not parade him in front of the cameras like they did with Chapo?
To understand that, you have to look at the history, specifically the Ovidio precedent.
The Culiacanazo.
Right. For those who don't remember, in 2019, the Mexican military actually captured Ovidio Guzman. That's El Chapo's son. They captured him in the city of Culiacan. They had him in custody.
And it went wrong. Fast. It was a disaster. The Sinaloa cartel didn't just fight back. They laid siege to the entire city.
I remember seeing the videos of that.
They took civilians hostage. They surrounded the housing units where the families of the soldiers lived. They essentially held a gun to the head of every military wife and child in Culiacan and said, let him go or we kill everyone.
And the government blinked.
The government released him. President Lopez Obrador, the predecessor to the current president, he ordered his release to stop the bloodshed. It was a complete humiliation for the Mexican state.
It just proved that if you capture a kingpin, the cartel can just bully you into letting him go.
So with Mencho, they looked at that precedent and said, we can't risk that.
Because Mencho is, or was, way more powerful than Ovidio.
Exactly. If you capture Mencho alive, the CJNG does the exact same thing, but on a national scale. You have a hostage crisis involving millions of people. If you kill him, you still get violence, you still get chaos, but the leverage is gone. You can't negotiate for a corpse.
So the order was shoot to kill. But finding him, that's the hard part. This is a guy who has evaded the DEA, the Mexican Marines, rival cartels for over a decade. And the way they finally found him, it wasn't some crazy satellite tech or a snitch deep in the ranks. It was the oldest trick in the book.
A honey trap.
A woman he was romantically involved with.
Intelligence tracked her movements. She visited his compound in the Ixtlacan del Rio area on a Friday. She left on a Saturday. That confirmed his location. Sunday morning, they hit the compound.
It's incredible when you think about it. You have this guy who runs a Fortune 500 criminal empire, who has military-grade security, who completely ghosts the entire world for years.
Yeah.
And he gets taken down because of a romantic visit.
It's a pattern we see with these figures constantly. Ryan Wedding, the Canadian kingpin, he had similar vulnerabilities. Even El Chapo fell because of his fascination with the actress del Castillo.
Right.
It seems that for all the operational security, for all the encrypted phones and tunnel networks, the human element, the simple desire for connection, is always the breach in the armor.
So the mission executes. Mencho is dead. And now we're looking at the aftermath. The source describes the current state of Jalisco as pure anarchy.
The visuals described are horrific. We aren't talking about a few shootouts between cops and robbers. We are talking about 30 National Guard members killed in a single day.
30.
Bodies left on the highways as warnings.
And the disruption to daily life.
Yeah.
Cars torched, tire spikes thrown on the roads to stop reinforcements. I read the part about the airport, and it was just wild. Civilians sheltering in place at the Guadalajara airport, running across the tarmac because they're terrified the crossfire is going to breach the terminal. It sounds exactly like a war zone.
It is a war zone. But here is where it gets really interesting. And frankly, highly disturbing. The disconnect between what is happening on the ground and what the government is saying about it.
Oh, this part really got to me. President Claudia Sheinbaum comes out and claims the images circulating on social media are AI-generated or fake. She tells the nation everything is calm.
It's gaslighting on a national level.
Total gaslighting.
The source, Katarina Salk, is incredibly frustrated by this in her reporting. You have people whose cars are literally burning, who can't get to work, who are seeing bodies on their commute. And their president is standing at a podium telling them it's a computer simulation.
It just erodes trust completely.
Yeah.
If you can't even agree on basic reality, how can you govern?
You can't. And that reinforces the shadow president thesis we started with. If the official president denies your reality, and the shadow president or his successors are the ones actually dictating whether you can safely drive down the highway, the state has lost control.
Yeah.
The government is essentially saying, don't believe your lying eyes.
And the entity that has taken control of the CJNG is not just a street gang. I think we need to really drill down into what this organization is, because the source calls them a Fortune 500 company. That sounds like hyperbole, but is it?
It's not hyperbole at all. By some estimates, if they were a legitimate above-board business, they would be the 5th largest employer in Mexico.
Let that sink in for a second.
Yeah.
5th largest employer.
It's a massive corporate structure. They have human resources. They have logistics networks. They have payroll. They have PR departments. And unlike other cartels that tend to shatter into a million pieces when the leader dies, like we saw with the Zetas or partly with Sinaloa, the CJNG has a corporate succession plan.
They were ready for this.
They knew Mencho wouldn't live forever. He was sick. He was old. The source mentions key successors who are already stepping up: El Sapo, LO3, and El Jardinero. These aren't just random thugs fighting for a crown. They are executives in a criminal enterprise.
Can we break them down a bit? Who are these guys?
El Sapo is known for his operational discipline. He runs the cleaning crews, the enforcers.
Okay.
LO3 is Mencho's stepson, so he represents the bloodline legitimacy, keeping the family legacy intact. And El Jardinero, he's the diplomat. He's specifically mentioned in the reports as the liaison with the Chapitos faction of the Sinaloa cartel.
So they have diplomatic channels, too.
Precisely. The source predicts a peaceful transition of power within the cartel itself. They aren't going to fight each other. They are going to focus all their violence outward against the government to prove they're still strong.
They have to show the market that they're stable.
Right. They need to show the market and their rivals that the stock price isn't dropping just because the CEO died.
And when they fight, they aren't fighting with rusty AK-47s anymore. The military capabilities Katerina describes are, well, they're terrifying. We aren't talking about gang warfare. We are talking about modern combat.
They have everything except jets and tanks. And honestly, they have vehicles that basically rival tanks.
The monsters. I've seen pictures of these on social media, but can you explain what they actually are?
These are domestic armored vehicles. They take heavy-duty trucks, Ford F-350s, commercial haulers, and they strip them down to the chassis. Then they hire professional engineers and welders to plate them with inches of steel armor.
Jeez.
They install turret mounts for 50 caliber machine guns. They have battering rams. They have gun ports cut into the sides.
So it's basically Mad Max tank.
But much better engineered. These monsters can go toe-to-toe with the National Guard's official Ocelot vehicles. They're designed to withstand small arms fire and even improvised explosives. It shows that they have a real manufacturing capability. They aren't just buying weapons, they are building systems.
But it's the tech that really stood out to me in the report. The drones. The source mentions they are using fiber optic guided drones. Now, I know a little about consumer drones, but fiber optic. Why would you attach a physical wire to a drone?
This is a major evolution in cartel warfare, and it comes directly from the battlefields of Ukraine.
Wow.
See, standard drones use radio frequencies to talk to the controller in the operator's hands. That makes them vulnerable to jammers. The police or military can blast a radio signal that cuts the connection, and the drone just falls out of the sky.
Okay, that makes sense.
But a fiber optic drone, it unspools a thin fiber optic cable behind it as it flies, sometimes for up to 10 kilometers. It is physically tethered to the operator. That means you can't jam it. There is no radio signal to intercept.
So it's completely unstoppable via electronic warfare.
Exactly. You can blast all the RF jamming you want, but that bird is still coming right at you. And where did they learn this? The source claims that Colombian mercenaries who fought in Ukraine are being recruited by the CJNG to bring that exact knowledge back to Mexico.
That's insane.
They are using first-person view drone tactics, FPV tactics, developed on the front lines of Eastern Europe and applying them directly in Jalisco.
That is such a chilling connection. You have the total globalization of war tactics. Techniques developed to fight a superpower like Russia are now being used to blow up municipal police stations in Mexico.
It just shows the adaptability of the CJNG. They aren't static. They are a learning organization. They study global conflicts and import the best practices.
And part of that organization, the darker side, if it can get any darker, is the recruitment. The source talks about extermination camps, specifically a place called Rancho Isa.
This is where the story turns into pure horror. These aren't just training camps like a military boot camp. They are psychological conditioning centers.
The details are gruesome. Forced recruitment, complete dehumanization.
The source explicitly compares it to ISIS. The goal isn't just to teach a new recruit how to shoot a gun or clear a room. The goal is to strip the recruit of their basic humanity so they can commit extreme violence without any hesitation.
Right.
They talk about forcing recruits to participate in torture, burning people alive with tires, hanging bodies from bridges.
And the point isn't just sadism for the sake of it. It's desensitization.
Correct. If you can make a young man watch or actively participate in that kind of horror, then shooting a National Guardsman on a highway becomes just another Tuesday. It
Right.
breaks the moral barrier completely. It ensures that when the order comes down from the bosses to burn the city, they don't hesitate.
This brings us to the bigger picture. If they have the money, the manpower, the corporate structure, and the military tech moat, how does the government let this happen? This leads us to the narco-state allegations in the report.
This is undoubtedly the most controversial part of the source's report. Katerina Sulk claims that the corruption isn't a bug in the system, it is the system.
She calls it a narco-economy.
She alleges that politicians, governors, and senators are actively on the payroll. But she goes all the way to the top. She reports, and we have to emphasize this is her reporting based on her sources on the ground, that President Sheinbaum acts as a narco-president.
Hold on. Calling the sitting president of Mexico a narco-president is a massive accusation. Is this just political mudslinging, or does she provide a basis for this?
It is a very heavy accusation. We aren't endorsing it, but we have to look at her argument. The argument she presents is that Sheinbaum and her predecessor, AMLO, were handpicked, or at least heavily supported by cartel interests, to maintain a status quo, a policy of hugs, not bullets.
Right.
The logic she uses is, why did the government stop fighting? Why did they order the military to stand down so many times over the last few years?
The idea being that the president protects the cartel's interests in exchange for a semblance of peace, or perhaps just to maintain power.
Or simply to stay alive. The source points out that the U.S. constantly has to strong-arm the Mexican president into acting because the domestic pressure to not act is so overwhelmingly high. If you go against the cartel, you aren't just fighting criminals. You're fighting your own political donors, your local police chiefs, the bedrock of your local economy.
The police corruption is something we've heard about before, but the source puts it plainly with the phrase plata o plomo, silver or lead.
Take the bribe or take the bullet. It's a binary choice. Think about the municipal police officer in a small rural town in Jalisco. He's paid maybe $300 a month. He has no body armor, a standard pistol, and a family to feed.
Yeah.
The CJNG rolls up in a monster truck and offers him $1,500 a month to just look the other way when they drive through.
And if he says no?
They kill him, and they kill his wife and his kids. So most people take the silver. It's not just greed or corruption, it's survival. You can't be an honest cop in a system that is literally designed to kill honest cops.
This brings us to the elephant in the room, the United States. Because for all this talk of Mexican sovereignty, the source strongly suggests the strings are being pulled from Washington.
She calls it sovereignty theater.
I love that phrase, sovereignty theater. It implies a performance for the public.
It is a performance. The operation uses Mexican Marines. The press conferences are held in Mexico City. The president talks about national pride and taking down a threat. But the intel, the precise location of Mencho, the intense pressure to actually launch the mission, That's all American.
The source claims the U.S. basically handed the Mexican government a list.
Here is where he is. Go get him, or we will. That's the underlying dynamic. The source argues that the Mexican government is either incapable or totally unwilling to tackle these top-tier targets without U.S. intelligence forcing their hand.
And she goes further than just intelligence sharing. She claims U.S. boots are already on the ground.
Covertly, we aren't seeing the 101st Airborne parachuting into Guadalajara. But we are seeing special operators, intelligence assets moving around. She links the capture of Ryan Wedding, that Canadian kingpin, to a visit by U.S. officials. She specifically mentions names like Kash Patel in the context of these high-level, under-the-radar meetings.
It's literally the Sicario movie scenario.
She explicitly says that in the report. Sicario is real life. The flights of CIA planes over northern Mexico, the very specific timing of these captures, it all points to a deep, operational involvement that the general public is never supposed to see.
Right.
The U.S. wants the results. They want the dead kingpin. But they can't be seen pulling the trigger because it would look like an act of war or an invasion of a sovereign ally.
But there's a massive irony here, isn't there? The U.S. is pressuring Mexico to fight the cartels,
while simultaneously arming them.
70% of the guns at Mexican crime scenes come from the U.S.
It's a tragic, self-sustaining loop. The U.S. demand for fentanyl and cocaine fuels the cartel's bank accounts. They have billions in cash. Then, U.S. gun laws and straw buyers fuel the cartel's armory. Those Barrett 50 cals mounted on the monsters we talked about, those are almost all coming from north of the border.
So the U.S. government demands Mexico use its own blood to fight a monster that is in many ways fed and armed by American commerce.
Exactly. We export the weapons, we import the drugs, and we demand they fix the violence. It's a staggering geopolitical contradiction that costs thousands of lives every year.
And caught in the middle of that contradiction are the regular people. I really want to talk about the human toll, because the source emphasizes this so well. It's not just about kingpins dying in compounds, it's about the regular people just trapped to survive the week.
There was one story in her account that really broke my heart. The elderly woman at the casino.
Right. Tell us about that.
She works at a local casino, likely a cartel-run operation because that's just the economy there. The police raid it and shut it down as part of this broader crackdown after Mencho's death. Then the public transportation stops completely because of the blockades and burning buses on the roads.
She's stranded.
She's completely stranded. She can't work. She can't get a ride home. She has no money for food because her shift was canceled.
The day-to-day economy just collapses. When we hear cartel war, we think of shooting and tactical gear, but it also means no buses, no deliveries to the local grocery store, no work. People live check to check, and suddenly the check stops coming and you can't even buy bread.
And then there's the desensitization factor. The source describes driving past dead bodies on the road as a normal Tuesday.
She said she had a camera roll full of bodies on her phone. Just discarded humanity.
It fundamentally changes the psyche of a nation. When extreme violence becomes just ambient noise, how do you raise a generation? The source talks about the mothers. These are collective groups of women who go out into the desert with shovels, searching for these extermination camps, just trying to find a single bone fragment of their missing children.
The missing epidemic. It's a tragedy that barely makes the headlines internationally, but it defines life for so many down there.
And we really have to give credit to Katerina's perspective here. She is a journalist operating in what is effectively an active war zone, but without any of the protections in a recognized war zone. She openly admits she has no security detail.
She says having a bodyguard would make her a target or cut off her access.
Right. She relies on being disarming, being a woman, being transparent, telling them, look, I'm not a cop.
But she knows the risk. She talks very bluntly about the kill order. If a kill order comes down on her, she can't stop it. And she had this chilling realization that she wouldn't just be shot. She describes the absolute likelihood of being taken, tortured, raped before they finally kill her. And yet she stays.
She stays to tell these stories because otherwise it's just total silence and government press releases talking about AI images.
It takes immense courage. And it highlights that the only real truth coming out of these regions is often from people risking everything to tell it.
It's incredible.
So where does this all go? We have a dead kingpin. We have a government in total denial. We have U.S. covert ops operating in the shadows. Does the war end?
The source is deeply pessimistic. She says no, the war continues.
Why? I mean, if you cut off the head, shouldn't the snake die?
Not if the snake is a hydra, and not if the snake is a multinational corporation. The business model is simply too profitable, And the corporate structure is too robust. You remove the CEO, sure, but the board of directors is still there. El Sapo or LO3 will step up. The violence we are seeing right now is just the negotiation phase of the transition.
She also mentions a broader geopolitical context.
Yeah.
The Venezuela connection.
Right. She claims that Nicolas Maduro was captured earlier in January as part of this same sweep. Now, whether that fully confirms or not, she paints a picture of a region in total flux. It's not just Mexico. It's a destabilization of the established criminal and political order across Latin America.
But she doubts a scorched earth invasion from the U.S.
She highly doubts it. There is a lot of talk in U.S. politics about bombing the cartels or sending in the military, but she points out a massive risk: sleeper cells.
Sleeper cells inside the U.S.
The CJNG operates in every major U.S. city. They control the distribution networks. If the U.S. military formally invades Mexico, the war won't stay in Mexico. You could see retaliatory attacks in Chicago, in Atlanta, in Los Angeles. Plus, the border chaos would just be unmanageable.
So they stick to the shadows.
The U.S. prefers the surgical approach.
Yeah.
Covert strikes, intelligence sharing, diplomatic pressure. They want to manage the chaos, not become the primary target of it.
So the cycle just continues. A new kingpin rises to the top, the drugs flow north, the guns flow south, and the people in Jalisco just keep their heads down.
That seems to be the grim reality of it. The shadow president is dead. Long live the shadow president.
You know, as we wrap this deep dive up, I keep coming back to that exact term, shadow president.
It's definitely the most haunting part of this entire analysis.
Because it forces us to ask a really uncomfortable question. What actually makes a government legitimate? Is it the election? Or is it the ability to provide for the people?
If the official state provides insecurity, corruption, and lies, and the cartel provides electricity, swift justice, and protection for your business, then for the person living in that village, the cartel is the government.
Exactly. We are looking at the death of El Mencho as a massive victory for the rule of law. But if the structure he built remains intact, if the Fortune 500 company keeps running smoothly, have we really changed anything? Or are we just watching a violent corporate restructuring with a massive body count?
And at what point does that shadow government become so deeply entrenched that it can no longer be dismantled by any military force? Are we looking at a future where the cartel isn't an enemy of the state, but simply becomes the state?
That is a terrifying thought to leave you with, but it's one we have to consider. As you follow this story, look beyond the headline of Kingpin Killed. Look at the machine underneath, because that machine is still running.
And it's hiring.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Stay safe, stay curious, and we'll catch you on the next one.